We are.
Hello, and welcome to How I Built This Resilience Edition from NPR. This is where we talk about how businesses are building resilience during this challenging time. Who is that in the window next to me? It is Samantha Bee.
Hello.
Host and creator. Hello. Host and creator of Frontal with Samantha Bee. As many of you know, she's been bringing the show to all of us from her backyard these past few months in the woods with camera work from her husband, Jason Jones. Samantha Bee, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
It's so great to have you. If you're watching, by the way, on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or wherever you're watching, we're taking your questions, so please submit those for us. Normally, I don't get to ask your questions. I love to ask them, so please send them in. First of all, I know you've been filming the show from upstate New York, from your house there in your backyard. You are now in your apartment in Manhattan. Like, I think you just got there today or yesterday, right?
Well, the tropical storm last week knocked out power to our house, and we do not have power yet at the house. We don't have power and we don't have internet. And today we'll make it like officially. I think we're passing the 1 week mark since we've had power or internet. So in order to do this, and also my daughter had a Zoom for high school that she had to do, we came into the city where we also have questionable internet. So I hope that it works. I hope this works. This is not my normal shooting space. This is like a kid's playroom.
Oh, it's great.
I have a hot dog pillow. I'm just resting myself. The computer is resting on an exercise bicycle. So everything is very precarious.
I love it.
I managed to squeeze myself into a blouse. It's on the bottom row. It's not great.
you look great.
I fished for that. And I reeled it in. Thank you.
All right. So this may be a premature question, but I mean, is there any talk about when the show might go back to the studio?
We are constantly talking about it, but there doesn't seem to be any movement in that direction, which is really fine for now. And it's fine for September. It is not as fine for October, November, December, January, February. So, it's always a discussion. Our studio is a huge shared space. We literally share our studio space with John Oliver's show and a Dr. Razs show, and like shows come in and out. And so it's much more difficult, I think, to really, we don't control our own environment. So it's going to be very difficult for us to go back to the studio. So we're trying to figure out, there's about 10 different scenarios that we're kind of juggling for how to move the show forward into inclement weather, sustained inclement weather, or freezing cold. We'll see.
Sam, as you know, this is a show where we mostly talk about businesses and how they've been dealing with the crisis. And I mean, it's a little bit different. I mean, it is a business. A show is a business, but I mean, you have a big team that produces the show. I think like 70 people. So first of all, how have you been managing that? I know you and Jason are the executive producers of the show, and how has your team been managing through this?
I think, everybody's been doing incredible work. Everybody has, in the most anxiety riddled of circumstances, and everybody is dealing with their own, everybody has their own personal life that they're also bringing to the table every day, which everybody's really frightened, and people live with varying degrees of privacy. I mean, we have lots of young people on staff who will have roommates, and everybody's kind of clustered in small apartments. So it's really difficult to not have a central place to go and make the show. We all can work very independently. We've proven that. I think the social stress is pretty acute. It's not that you have to be together to do this show, but we prefer to be together. And so that part has actually been, I think, pretty stressful. I feel like my internet conked out a little bit. I see my headshot there. So anyway.
Yeah, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, great. Okay.
When was it clear that this thing was real and scary, and when did you decide to just go for it and just start filming from home? Like, how did you guys come to that decision?
I think that really March 11th, March 12th was a really critical period where a lot of people all at the same time realized that something big was really happening. And that was the moment when we gathered our stuff. We got kicked out of our studio, basically. We shot our last show, I think on March 11th in our studio space. But the building kind of closed around us because they had found a couple of COVID cases in the building itself. And so They were evacuating the building as we were taping the show. And that moment, really, we knew that we would not be in the studio the following week. The same thing happened to our office building, which was actually across the street from our studio. Everything started to shut down around us. And so we really advised people. We were like, grab your stuff, grab what you need, and go and get out. Grab whatever you need and get out. Grab your computers, grab whatever. And we did the same. Jason and I packed a suitcase, not really knowing that we would shoot the show at our house. We didn't know, but we had a vague notion. So I packed a lot of stupid stuff. I didn't do a good job packing for a life at our house. I packed like 5 blazers and a bunch of high-heeled shoes. Like I just panic shopped my apartment and woefully inadequate stuff, but enough material to kind of do something, I guess. And as we were up there for a couple of days, we really had no plan, except could we possibly shoot the show from up here? Like, I don't know. It wasn't like we had a really set plan going up there. But then after a couple of days up there, Jason and I decided to just start shooting stuff just because we wanted to, mark the moment where we were just living up there. And what if I was like a woodswoman living in the shack behind our garden? And so we just started shooting stuff, and sort of it was instinctive for us to shoot stuff because we always shoot stuff and we always have for the length of our relationship. But in the end, it really turned out to be a proof of concept to the network that we could shoot in our backyard and that it would look good and that it could be broadcast quality, even though it's shot on an iPhone with very limited equipment. We very quickly made the decision to shoot outside so that we wouldn't need lights, so that we could just use the light of the sun, because lighting is everything. So we thought, okay, we'll just use this big golden ball that's in the sky. That'll light everything. That'll be cheap. We don't have electricity back here. And that's how it started. And then it just grew and grew over the course of days to where it really seemed possible. And then we just tried to make a show, and it worked.
I mean, you've been like, I think you've described like you've used your kids' iPads as teleprompters.
And that has changed. That has remained stable. I still use my daughter's iPad there's a teleprompter. There's a teleprompter app that I use. It works great. I clip it to everything's very rudimentary. I just have a clip. I clip it to a stand. I run it myself. Now we have a couple of battery operated lights that we like, and a little screen to kind of like mute the harsh glare of the sun, but we're still doing it on an iPhone. I mean, we're still doing it on an iPhone. I'm still recording audio as a voice memo, which I'm doing for you right now. I use this lav for the show. It's like a $15 lav. It's fine.
It's funny. I think Jimmy Fallon at one point made the joke that like all late night hosts are now YouTube stars.
Right. It's a very DIY kind of experience, but Jason and I do come from the world of sketch, which is totally DIY, and we've always been that way as a couple, making movies in our house and doing stuff like that. It's kind of a natural extension. It's one of those full circle moments.
Is there anything about the approach that you've taken these past few months, like where you couldn't focus on like perfect lighting or a perfect set or a perfect script? You just had to make it. You just had to do it. Is there anything about that approach that eventually you want to take back, or that you will take back with you when you are in a more controlled environment?
I think so. There are ways that we have changed the process of taping that make sense for me to continue. Like normally we would, if we were in the studio, by way of example, we gather in the morning, we do a rehearsal. On a normal Wednesday, we would do a full rehearsal of the show around noon, 12:30, something like that. And then we do a long huddle, like a 3-hour huddle where we rewrite the show, or just like tweak it or see what worked, because often a joke is so funny and it looks great on the page. But when you say it out loud in a big, huge, studio space, it just doesn't land the way you want it to, or I don't nail it or something. And we're like, let's tweak that. So we make all of these little tweaks and adjustments. And then, of course, you wait for the audience. The audience comes in, and then a performance is very much for the audience. Like it's there's a community experience of it, and you're kind of surfing the wave of their enthusiasm. It's a totally different type of experience. So adjusting the show, we have to tape on Tuesday because the edit process takes an immense amount. It takes longer, totally different experience of editing. So we have to do it a day before, so we don't have an opportunity to add jokes Wednesday morning or Wednesday at 4:00 if something happens in the news. So we can't quite pivot that quickly. But I don't regret that. I can see now that maybe we don't need to do it that way. Maybe giving ourselves a day in between is perfectly fine way. What I'm saying is I haven't missed that. Yeah. I have missed the community of it, and I missed the rewrite because it's really rollicking and fun, and graphics is changing things, and we're making all these changes. I missed that enthusiasm in that moment where we're all in the grind together. I miss being together with people, but I don't really miss the actual technical aspect of it. And so I think we'll bring that back when we're in a more normal situation, but who knows really when that will be.
How has it been for you to kind of, to the point of to that point that you made about not performing in front of an audience? Like recently I had to give in later, actually today, I'm giving a speech at a convention, at a conference. Oh. And it's odd because you're not normally I make jokes when I speak and you're feeling the energy of the audience, and I'm just speaking to the green light on my computer, later today and have been. And it's so, you make a joke and you wonder, is anybody laughing or watching? So how are you managing that? Are you just, how do you know?
I'm not, I don't come from a stand-up background, so it's natural for me to work the crowd in my way of doing a live to tape performance. And I certainly, learned how to do that working at the Daily Show for a really long time. So I'm really good at it, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that back and forth with the audience. I really enjoy that kind of communion with them, but I don't need it. I think I don't need it. I think I have a good sense of what the rhythm of the show is without them. And if it's not safe to have an audience, and it's just not prudent to do that, I love our audience. I don't want to put them at risk, and I don't want to put our crew at risk. So we're not going to have an audience for a really long time. Really, who knows? Yeah. So I think it was just, when I really if I recall correctly, when I started this show, I didn't really want to have a live audience. I didn't think it was necessary for what I wanted to do. In the end, I did decide to have a live studio audience, and it was really great. And I got a lot out of it. And I really enjoyed meeting people because I really, really do enjoy that. But I can easily go back to not having an audience because I do feel the audience somewhat. It is very weird. I think the hardest part of, it's fine to do the content of the show in the forest. It's a little weird to do it just for my husband because he is, although he's also he's the most supportive person to me. He supports me. But he really Oh,
I think we lost Sam there for a moment. All right, while we try to get her back up. Oh, there you are. You're back. Yep. Yeah.
Also, he will tell me when I do something badly, and he is not afraid. He is not shy about telling me when I'm doing something wrong, or I could do something better, or I could improve. So it's very much a back and forth between the two of us. And our kids are there sometimes because they're holding equipment. If they're willing to do it, which they are not often willing to do it, because it's really boring for them.
Yeah.
but it's really helpful when they help us. It's actually really great. So that part is daunting. And then it's also daunting to do Zoom meetings. So we're having like these big meetings, like staff-wide meetings. But if you're looking at your own, if you're looking at the other person in your computer, or you're looking at yourself, you're not really relating to other people. So you're really only relating to people through this like dot in your computer.
Yeah.
It's very, because you're not really looking at anyone. You're just talking to a dot, which is always not, it's not ideal. It's not ideal.
We're taking your questions for Samantha Bee on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, however you're watching. We have some questions, and I'll get to them in a moment. But I want to ask you about those meetings. Do you guys have a daily staff meeting, like a daily Zoom meeting?
I don't have a daily staff meeting with everyone, but there are daily meetings for sure across departments.
Yeah, I mean, and I struggle with this, and I've asked people who've come on the show about this, because it is in a sense a way to connect, right? It's a way for everybody we have these meetings every morning on our team, and it's a way for everybody to see each other and just to see faces. And sometimes people just, they don't have their cameras on, or they'll put a picture of their dog, or and that's fine. But there is, I mean, like our team, and I'm sure your team too, like we're a really tight team, like our producers eat lunch together every day and talk about the world and hang out after work too. And it's just a really tight knit, group where there's exchanges and there's ideas. And obviously we haven't quite figured out how to replicate that on Zoom. I mean, it's great and we talk, but sometimes it's awkward, and I know all these people, and all these people that you work with, and you know them well. And it's like, it's a little bit awkward when you're kind of staring into this green dot on your computer.
Yes, it's not ideal. I don't like it. I don't think there's anyone at work who likes it. It does feel awkward. Like if we do, we do all hands meetings where if there's something to announce or there's nothing to announce and people just want to know that really nothing's changing, we try to do one at least once a week where it's everybody, just like everybody is there. And, usually I'm talking and it feels like I'm monologuing. There's no back and forth because it's so difficult to create that. You're just not seeing the nuance. Like you're not seeing the micro expressions on people's faces, and they're not really catching your body language. And it does feel like every Zoom should be, it's so inelegant.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm saying. I start to ramble because I'm trying to fill space, because no one's really like, there's no give and take in it. And I think I'm a very low quality talker on
Zoom.
I'm not proud of the things I don't know what I say. I leave every Zoom going, was I on? Like, people are quietly, lots of people mute their microphones because they're like traveling bags, or they have kids who are homeschooling, and it's nice and it's respectful. But at some point I was like, please stop muting. I'd really rather hear the crunching bag. Like I'd really much rather hear that someone's doing zippers or something than just like silence. Unless, I mean, maybe it's just me. I don't know, but I don't like it.
No, I totally hear you. Yesterday, for the first time in maybe 5 years, I just needed to have a bag of nacho cheese Doritos, and I got them.
Good
and I was eating those, but I was on mute.
I hope that you enjoyed them. Everybody deserves those little orange powdery.
I did.
Every once in a while.
They were good. They were good. They threw me off my regular diet. We have a bunch of questions coming in. I'm going to start with this one from Brian Geller. First of all, as many of our viewers know, many of the greatest Americans are actually Canadian.
Right.
Including you. Right. And my question is, well, we'll get to my question. Sam asks, I'm sure you've been following what's going on in Canada and how they're handling the crisis.
Sure.
Clearly much, much better than we are in the United States. Mm-hmm. Are you, I mean, what, like, when you see what's going on in Canada and you talk to your family, are they sort of saying, what is going on there? What's yeah.
It's appalling. It's appalling what has happened here. And and the border's closed. The Canada-U.S. border is closed, so we haven't seen family members, and we see our family all the time, all the time. My dad has a small apartment here. We love our family, and we are very close, and we haven't seen anyone since February. So we're really missing family. They can't come across. We can't. We are not wanted across the border.
No.
For understandable reasons. So yeah, I mean, I think that Canadians are, as they are appalled everywhere in the world, that there is no coherent response to this is just a disgrace. It's a disgrace. I don't even know what to say about it. I don't blame them for not letting us in.
Yeah, I'm wondering because so much of your comedy focuses obviously on news and current events and politics, and it is, to say, dark time. I mean, it's been a really rough few years, and this has been the cherry on top this year. Like 2020, go 2020. It's been like the king of bad years in recent years. How do you? I don't know. Like, obviously, I mean, you provide us with comic relief. Like, we come to you to laugh. Like, that is what you do for us. But what about you? How do you, like, do you just have days where you just want to, like, hide under the covers and, like, cry?
Of course. Of course. Oh, yes, I do. But I'm still, I do, this is my job. I do a comedy show. I love doing it. It's important to me. It has so much, in some ways, like, if I wasn't making this show for broadcast, I'd probably be trying to make this show just for myself and my family. It's just a very natural, like, organic extension of who I am. But I spend many days, we're all, it's a roller coaster ride. We're just catching each other's moods and just trying to keep, we're very lucky. We're healthy. We're in a house. We're safe. Relatively safe. So we're counting our blessings, for one thing. We're working, which is an additional blessing. So I'm, like, really trying to be mindful of all the things that we do have to be thankful for. And of course, we're going through an absolute roller coaster of emotion because we're ultimately human too. And we watch the news. We don't watch the news right now because we don't have any power.
Good. Don't watch it.
But I think maybe that's a blessing too. Just for a couple more days, just until the VP pick, and then just like a day after that, and then I'll find out after.
Hey, you just launched a podcast, full release with Samantha Bee. You did what? I mean, it's awesome. I want to ask you about an episode in a sec, but what does that allow you to do that you can't do on television?
Well, it's such a long conversation, which is really beneficial. I do interview a lot of people on the show, which I love. I actually just love interviewing people. I truly do. But the show is 21 minutes. I mean, the show itself, the entirety of the show is 21 minutes. So when I interview someone awesome, like Katie Porter, I don't know, just by way of example, she's great. We talk for half an hour and then we end up using 5 minutes of that conversation. So podcast, look, everybody else is doing one. Why shouldn't I sully that landscape too? But it's also it's something I truly love to do. I'll be interviewing people for my whole life. When I retire, when I'm an elderly person in a home, I'll still be interviewing people. Like, I just am so curious about them. So it's really fun for me. I don't find it to be an onerous task to, like, sit down with a list of people who I really dig and 45 minutes. It's great.
On a recent episode, you had the New Yorker journalist Jelani Cobb on, and you asked him if you go back in time and delete a certain social media platforms, which ones would they be? I love what you do on your YouTube channel. You say at the end, like, hey, subscribe if you like this and write a comment. And if you hate this, you've probably already written a comment, which I love. I mean, you are very familiar with the pitfalls and the perils of social media. So like, if you could go back in time and change it, what would you do?
Boy, I would just delete Facebook. I would just not. I mean, I would never was a Facebook person, which is great, but I think it's done so much. It's just done so much damage, not just in our own country, but across the world. I mean, it's, there are countries across the world in which Facebook is like considered to be the government practically. It's the only resource people have to communicate and to understand the world that they're living in. And I think that's very dangerous. And they have built, they just built a piece of machinery that they really did not understand its capabilities. And, it's very, to me, it's very scary. I've never really understood why it came into people's lives and they were so willing to give it all of their personal information with no, I've just never understood the function of it in someone's life. And I think it's done immense damage. So I would, that's one that I would really take a look at strongly. My facial expression I felt it like completely changed. Like as soon as you asked me that question, I was like, just like a dark cloud passed over. And I was like, because this is probably airing on Facebook. So anyway, like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Oh God. Whoops.
Yep. It's on Facebook.
There you go.
Fine. They're used to it. So I'm going to combine two questions from Shayna Ingram and Kim Cope. So you've got kids at home. How are you and Jason doing with school starting again? And how are you, what advice would you have for women who are trying to balance it all from home, working from home during COVID and also living from home?
Well, it has been such it is a struggle, I think, across the board. So I don't know that I actually just don't have any advice. I have more like a wish of like a prayer of goodwill.
Yeah.
And I'm so worried about the fall. Honestly, just separating myself from the job that I do. We have kids in the New York City public school system. They're going back to school. They're going back to school in September. Of course, we're very stressed and worried. We trust our school administrators to do the right thing. I'm not sure I trust the Department of Education, but I do trust our individual school administrators to have gamed out every scenario. And so I'm going to go with whatever their plans end up being. I still think it's a moving target a little bit because it's only August 11th and there's still time to go. And there's still time, unfortunately, to observe the school system in Indiana and the school system in Georgia and, what has been wrought there. So I'm not entirely sure that the final decision has been made by any of the school administrators for what's happening in September. I'm going to trust our individual principals. We're buying a lot of masks. I've got a lot of masks on order. We'll be masked. We'll respect those systems. But I do expect that our children will be going back for some type of blended learning.
Yeah.
As soon as they go back in September. And it's immensely worrying.
Yeah.
Our children want it. They want it so badly. And and Godspeed to all the parents. It's been so difficult for parents. It's been so goddamn difficult.
Yeah.
And I really feel bad too, personally. So.
Yeah. Our schools are not going to open for in-class learning, which is, like you, I'm like a huge part of me is relieved because I'm worried, but a big part of me is also like, this is it. It's going to require a lot of work from parents too, as we all experienced in the spring. But I guess my one bit of optimism is that schools had the spring to kind of test this out. And my hope is that in the fall, the processes will be more efficient. We'll see.
I'm very worried for the teachers. I am very, very worried for the teachers. So, that's all I can say. I truly don't have any wisdom or any awesome droplets, just that our kids are in the system too.
Yeah.
And so, wish us all well.
I think sometimes or oftentimes wisdom and advice actually is not better than just relating to somebody's situation by telling your own story, which is really what How I Built This is about. We try to bring on people and to tell their stories about the crises in their lives. So people will hear it and be like, oh my God, I didn't know Howard Schultz actually had a crisis, so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's all I can say. We're in it too. Like, we're sending our kids into the fray, just like most other parents in the city of New York. And so I really, really hope it goes well. And I do believe that they are gaming out every scenario. I think so much time was wasted. So many pissing contests happened and are continuing to happen and probably won't stop. And it is very unfortunate.
Yeah. Sam, before I let you go, I mean, when you think about just how the industry will change, we've had some people from the industry on, producers, and we had Jeremy Zimmer, the head of UTA, on a couple of weeks ago. Television really is not being made in general. There's a little bit, but in general, it's not being made. There's going to be a shortage of new television in like a few months. Yes. But when you think about how this pandemic is already changing the industry and even changing what you do, are there things about those changes that actually you want to take with you that you actually think have been good in some ways?
I think, there are changes to our systems that I think it's been revelatory to realize that we actually could change some pretty fundamental systems within our process. Like, we just built the show a certain way, and actually pivoting and doing the show a different way has been fine. And you feel sometimes when you have a system in place that really works for you, that you can't ever make a big change. Well, in this case, we were absolutely forced to make a big change. And some of the ways that it changed were very good. And I actually do think, if I may say so myself, that the backdrop of the forest is very pretty.
It is. It's great.
Very nice to look at, and it's seasonal. So when the leaves start to change, it'll be very attractive backdrop. It'll actually be kind of aesthetically challenging for me to go back into a studio if we do that, because it's just not as fun as looking at leaves and things that are blooming and dragonflies passing by. As for like the industry as a whole, I'm not sure what is good about the changes that will be moving forward. Because, I think there's a way to shoot things safely. I think there's a way for us to return to sort of like quote unquote normal, like regular looking television. And that really probably requires quarantining entire productions together, which is fine. That can be done. There are changes that I will personally make going forward. I'm not sure it's been a very difficult, I'm just separating myself from this and my own show. Networks have been through, this is unprecedented for them. They've lost so much ad revenue. They're probably going to try and start making shows more cheaply, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they will be great.
Right.
There's a lot of reality in our lives for the next little while. We're certainly all looking back at regular television now and going, look at all those people in a restaurant. Like we're watching Tom Cruise movies and we're like, look at that cafe. It's just bustling with people all breathing on each other. So I do think it'll change the tone of programming, but I don't know what I can say moving forward will be great. I haven't figured that out yet. I'll let you know what the brighter side is the next time I come on.
All right, perfect. But at the end of the day, you have become a better camera operator and sound recorder.
Well, we have become better at that. We've become very good at lighting. Like we've become very good at harnessing the power of the sun to just make it glow just so, which is always beneficial.
Yep.
Just very good. And this, of course, it's just perfect for just shoot the whole show on here. No problem.
I love it. It's perfect. I love it.
It's not going to change a thing.
Samantha Bee, co-creator of Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. Thank you so much. It's been so good having you.
It's great talking to you.
And just want to thank a couple people. Sorry, wasn't able to get to all your questions. Thank you for submitting them. Thank you to Mary Eileen watching in Baltimore, Maryland, Carmen Het in Geneva, Tim Granter in LA, and so many others. I'm sorry I can't shout out to all of you. we're going to be back here on Friday, same time, with a new episode of How I Built This Resilient series. By the way, we dropped a brand new episode of our show yesterday. It's the story of Briogeo with Nancy Twine. It is such a cool story about how she left her corporate job. She had no experience in the beauty industry, and she created this incredible line of hair care products that is now one of the fastest growing brands at Sephora. So check that out. Thank you, everybody. Again, Sam, thank you. And hope I get to see you in New York one of these days when I go on a plane.
Yes. Oh my God. Imagine. It was great talking to you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.